Okay, first of all, I know the history behind the WNBA. I know that both of those cities have had teams before and they got us where we're at, so I'm thankful for that.
Sophie Cunningham, the fearless WNBA star with fire in her spirit and boldness in her game, stunned the basketball world with a revelation that went far beyond the court. It wasn't about three-pointers, playoff pressure, or a highlight reel moment. It was about life, raw, personal, and deeply human. Behind her competitive energy, Sophie had been carrying news that she had kept private, a truth that held more weight than any stat sheet ever could. When she chose to open up, she didn't make an announcement in front of cameras or issue a carefully crafted press release. She picked up her phone and called Caitlin Clark. That decision alone spoke volumes. Because in that moment, it wasn't about teammates or rivals, rookies or veterans. It was about trust, respect, and the kind of bond that transcends basketball. The call wasn't filled with rehearsed words or polished statements. Sophie's voice carried the gravity of a woman stepping into a new chapter of her life. She wasn't talking about training schedules, defensive strategies, or conditioning drills. She was sharing something deeper, something vulnerable. And Caitlin, despite her rookie status and the immense pressure of being hailed as the new face of the WNBA, didn't respond as a celebrity or a public figure. She reacted as a friend. She listened. She smiled. She offered reassurance that echoed louder than any cheer from the stands. "You don't have to walk through this alone." That kind of response reminded everyone watching that athletes, no matter how brightly they shine under the spotlight, are still human beings first. When the news eventually slipped beyond that private conversation, the reaction was immediate. Fans, teammates, even rivals, everyone rallied around Sophie with an outpouring of support. In a league often defined by grit and fierce competition, this moment softened the edges. Teammates didn't just cheer her on the court, they celebrated her courage to share such personal news. Rivals, players who usually battled her for every loose ball, sent messages of love and encouragement, and fans lit up social media, not with criticism or questions, but with warmth. They shared their own stories, posted heartfelt words, and turned Sophie's moment into a celebration that stretched far beyond the game. It became proof that the WNBA is more than just a league. It's a family, a community bound together not just by competition, but by humanity. Yet, behind the celebration was curiosity. Sophie had always been known for guarding her personal life with remarkable silence. On the court, her energy and charisma were undeniable. On social media, she gave glimpses of her humor, her behind-the-scenes moments, and her faith. But when it came to romance, she closed the curtain tightly. No tagged photos, no cryptic tweets, no subtle hints that fans could latch onto. Years earlier, there had been whispers linking her to Jacob Neidig, a multi-sport athlete, and Sophie even shared a photo that fueled speculation. But after 2020, that trail vanished. By 2021, it was as if that relationship had been erased from public memory. And from then on, Sophie perfected the art of silence. She answered questions about basketball, about her team, even about her faith. But love and relationships remained untouched. That silence only deepened the intrigue. Some believed she was focused solely on her career, pouring all her energy into basketball. Others thought she was protecting a relationship out of sight, keeping it safe from public scrutiny. And a few speculated that she enjoyed the mystery, letting fans wonder while she quietly controlled her narrative. Whatever the case, Sophie had mastered the balance of being open enough to connect with her supporters, while private enough to shield her most intimate life from view. So, when news broke about her stepping into motherhood, fans were both shocked and amazed. How could someone who seemed so guarded suddenly share something so personal? And yet, that contrast only made the moment more powerful, because Sophie Cunningham isn't defined by secrecy or openness. She is defined by resilience. Her journey into the WNBA wasn't paved with guarantees. Drafted in the second round in 2019 by the Phoenix Mercury, she wasn't expected to last. Second-round picks often fade before they ever make an impact. But Sophie thrives on doubt. She turned every skeptic into a believer with her fiery defense, her lethal shooting from beyond the arc, and her relentless hustle. By her second season, she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. She became the heartbeat of her team, the player you could count on when the game got tough. And beyond her skills, what truly connected her to fans was her authenticity. She doesn't hide behind polished media answers or play the part of a perfect athlete. She shows up as herself, raw, real, and unapologetically human. Whether she's cracking jokes on social media, laughing with teammates, or opening up about her struggles, Sophie makes people feel like they know her. That authenticity makes every revelation she shares hit harder, and it's why a simple phone call to Caitlin Clark resonated far beyond their circle. It was real. It wasn't scripted. It was Sophie being Sophie. And Caitlin, in turn, revealed something equally powerful. For all her stardom, all the hype surrounding her rookie season, she reminded everyone that greatness isn't only about breaking records or drawing sold-out crowds. It's also about how you treat the people around you. Caitlin didn't treat Sophie's revelation as breaking news. She treated it as what it was, a moment of vulnerability from someone she respected. That compassion, that immediate support, showed a maturity beyond her years. It showed that leadership isn't measured only in points scored, but in the empathy you extend to others. This story, then, became more than just a headline. It became a symbol, a reminder that women athletes don't have to choose between career and personal happiness. For generations, society told women to pick one path: family or sport, motherhood or career. But Sophie's news defied that outdated thinking. It proved you can carry both dreams side by side. You can fight for victories on the court and embrace milestones off it. And in doing so, you don't weaken your legacy. You enrich it for fans. That realization struck deeply. They weren't just celebrating Sophie's courage. They were witnessing the evolution of women's sports itself, a future where players are recognized not just for their stats, but for their humanity. Future where resilience is measured in more than game-winning shots. And in that future, Sophie Cunningham's story is a defining chapter. Sophie Cunningham's revelation didn't just ripple through the WNBA, it reshaped the way fans, teammates, and even rivals looked at her. Because at its heart, this wasn't a story about a secret or about shock value. It was about strength. The same strength Sophie had carried with her since the very beginning of her basketball journey now revealed itself in a different form. The strength to share, to embrace change, and to step boldly into a new chapter of life. To understand why this moment felt so powerful, you have to remember who Sophie Cunningham has always been. At the University of Missouri, she built her legacy not by waiting for opportunities, but by creating them. She wasn't the most hyped recruit in the nation, but she became one of the most unforgettable. She turned the Missouri Tigers home, poured into her personal stage, averaging more than 20 points a game and leaving fans in awe of her fearless, aggressive style. Every time she walked onto the court, it was with fire in her eyes and an intensity that said, "I belong here." That attitude carried her through college and into the pros, where she faced the harsh reality that second-round draft picks don't always last. Many fade quietly, lost to the churn of the league. Sophie refused to be one of them. By her second year with the Phoenix Mercury, she had transformed from a long shot into the heartbeat of her team. She wasn't a superstar in name, but she was. The kind of player every coach wanted. The hustler, the fighter, the one who would dive for loose balls and hit a clutch three when the game was on the line. Fans connected to her not only for her play, but for her personality. She was fiery, outspoken, unfiltered, and unapologetically herself. That's why this latest news felt so human, so real. Because Sophie has always thrived on defying expectations. And now, she was doing it again. This time, not with a game-winning shot, but with a personal choice to live authentically. The reaction from Caitlin Clark added a new layer to the story. Caitlin, the rookie phenom, had every reason to be caught, up in her own whirlwind. She was breaking records, selling out arenas, and carrying the weight of a league's future on her shoulders. Yet when Sophie called her, Caitlin set all of that aside. She didn't respond as the face of the WNBA. She responded as a friend. Her words, her tone, her joy, they reminded fans of something simple yet profound. Greatness is not only about what you accomplish. It's also about how you show up for others. That bond between Sophie and Caitlin surprised many people because on paper they couldn't be more different. Caitlin's rise was meteoric. She became a household name almost overnight. Sophie's path was slower, harder, earned through years of grinding. Caitlin entered the league as the Golden Girl, hailed as a generational talent. Sophie entered as an underdog, forced to claw her way into relevance. Yet, those differences created a respect that blossomed into genuine friendship. At training camps, at practices, in quiet conversations away from the cameras, they built a connection rooted in understanding. Caitlin admired Sophie's resilience, her refusal to quit in a league where nothing is guaranteed. Sophie admired Caitlin's ability to handle the crushing weight of expectations with grace. So when Sophie had news to share, Caitlin was the first person she trusted. And that trust spoke volumes. It wasn't about fame or status or who held the spotlight. It was about who had shown up consistently, who had listened, who had proven that behind the hype and headlines, they were simply human beings walking side by side. For fans, that choice highlighted something rare in professional sports: vulnerability. Too often, athletes are expected to put up walls. They're told to focus on the game, to hide their personal lives, to stay polished for the media. But Sophie broke through that barrier. By opening up, she reminded everyone that athletes don't live separate, perfect lives. They face the same struggles, the same milestones, the same questions about identity, balance, and future. And Caitlin's response reminded fans that support can be just as powerful as any highlight play. Beyond the personal story, this moment touched something much larger: the changing narrative of women's sports. For decades, female athletes were forced into an impossible choice: career or family. The unspoken rule was clear: you couldn't have both. If you wanted to reach the top, you had to sacrifice everything else. But slowly, that narrative is being rewritten. Policies are shifting. Representation is growing. And athletes like Sophie are proving that you don't have to choose one dream at the expense of another. You can be both: a professional athlete and a mother, a competitor and a caregiver, fierce on the court and tender at home. That duality doesn't weaken their legacy. It strengthens it, because it shows that greatness isn't confined to a box. It expands, it evolves, it adapts. And when Sophie shared her news, she wasn't stepping away from basketball. She was stepping into a fuller version of herself, one that carried just as much fire as the player who once silenced doubters with clutch shots and fearless defense. The ripple effects of this moment extended beyond Sophie and Caitlin. Fans saw it as proof that women's sports aren't just about scores and stats. They're about humanity. They're about stories of resilience, identity, and the refusal to be limited. Parents saw it as a message of hope for their daughters. You can chase your dreams and build your family. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other. Young athletes saw it as a reminder that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. And fellow players saw it as a call to support one another, to embrace each other's milestones both on and off the court. And perhaps most importantly, Sophie's revelation reminded the world why the WNBA is different. Yes, it's filled with competition, rivalries, and intense battles. But at its core, it's a community, a sisterhood. Players fight tooth and nail during games, but when the buzzer sounds, they uplift one another. They cheer not just for each other's victories on the court, but for their victories in life. That's what makes this league special. That's what keeps fans invested, not just in the game, but in the people who play it. So where does this leave Sophie Cunningham? It leaves her exactly where she's always been, defying expectations. From overlooked draft pick to team leader, from guarded public figure to courageous sharer of personal truth, from basketball player to symbol of resilience, authenticity, and balance. Her story now isn't just about basketball. It's about life. It's about what it means to carry dreams in both hands, to embrace change with courage, and to remind the world that athletes are, above all else, human beings. And where does it leave Caitlin Clark? It leaves her not just as a star rookie, but as a friend who proved that leadership isn't measured only by points on a scoreboard. It's measured by empathy, by presence, by the way you lift others in their defining moments. That quiet maturity added another layer to her already historic rookie season, showing fans that greatness is as much about character as it is about talent. In the end, Sophie's revelation wasn't just about her. It was about all of us, about the way we see athletes, about the way we define success, about the way we balance ambition and humanity. It was a reminder that the most powerful stories in sports aren't always about championships or records. Sometimes they're about a phone call, about a moment of trust, about two friends reminding us that behind every jersey is a person and behind every headline is a heart. And that's why this story will linger long after the season ends. Not because of shock, not because of speculation, but because it revealed something timeless. That the strength to be real, to be human, is the greatest victory of all.